Greetings, African people. Greetings, melanated black people. My name is Lefera Cholo, Amendra Dajet, Pata Otep Akera Anga. Topic, African Consciousness. African consciousness is driven by an African worldview. It is an ability to be an African. Consciousness is based on culture. It is about being our own subject and agency of study. Consciousness is a school of thought. Our base as Africans is Afrocentric cultural and ideological standing. Every nation is founded on ecosystem of culture, social relations, communal economy, and value system. Economics is nothing but a social relation between people. Therefore, it's a social construct. African consciousness has been stolen from us. We do not have an African in Africa. We do not have an African university in Africa. We do not have an African school in Africa. We are all black-skinned white people who are designed and created for the servitude of a white race. We are a people who hate ourselves. We are a people who hate our images and symbols. We are a people who support other races economically, but cannot support their own black people. We are a people who leave nothing for their children, black children, but poverty, disorganization, and misery. We are a people who pray to white gods and follow white religions. We are a people who encourage their children to play with white dolls and idolize white heroes and heroines. We are a people who are ashamed to speak African languages. We carry foreign names. So, all of us, if we were living in an Afrocentric society, we will be declared as insane because all of us, we are all out of our minds. To be loyal to white race at the expense of our race, that is mental slavery. And that is a pathology of our oppression. We see life through the white and Asian lenses. We are not Africans because we do not qualify. We cannot be African and Christians at the same time. We cannot be African and Muslims at the same time. There is no individual power without group power. We are a group of people without group code of conduct and accountability. We do not have consequence management. We do not understand that racism is not prejudice, but a power relations between people. We can march, we can shout. We can march and shout until we are blue. That will not stop the menticide, the police brutality, and the black mass murder. The only solution against injustice is power. The only solution against injustice is power. Here in Azania, as black people, we are mere visitors because we do not own land and means of production. We were fooled by 1994 sellout project and the Mandela deception. We have so-called freedom without material gain and substance. The white culture have taught us to be individualistic, while a human being is a social being, which means we depend on each other for survival. Our ancestors were not stupid when they implemented Letsema, Ubuntu, Ewepili, Isusu. Our ancestors were not stupid. I repeat, our ancestors were not stupid when they implemented Letsema, Ubuntu, Ewepili, and Isusu. Why we do not know about the first civilizations of Kemet, Nubia, Kush, Great Zimbabwe, Shanghai, which came from Africa? Why we do not know about Medunecha, the first form of writing? Why we do not know about the first mathematical tools, Libombo and Ishangobo? Why we do not know about the first divine value system, Ma'at? Why we do not know about Nana Gabriel Oyibo, an African mathematician who came with the great God unified theorem, the theory of everything? Why we do not know about Imhotep, the real father of medicine, who came from Africa? Why we do not know about Philip Mangwili, who came with the first supercomputer? Why we do not know about our African scholars like Dr. Marimba Ani, Dr. Chuck Anton Diop, Dr. John Henry Clark, Dr. Chinwezu, Dr. Amos N. Wilson, Dr. Francis Cress Wilson, who gave us an Afrocentric scholarship, but we rather follow white scholars. There is no foreign concept that will liberate us. Malcolm X taught us that the logic and the language of the oppressor cannot be the language and the logic of the oppressed. We need to reclaim the African mind and fight this mental maladjustment. We must redevelop the African consciousness. However, we cannot build the African consciousness through talking and meetings. We can only build an African consciousness through building our own Afrocentric institutions that will produce African warriors and African nation builders. Black people do not understand. Power gives us an ability and means to define and name ourselves and rally resources, even when people are opposing us. We need to build this power. We need to develop our own African schools, our own Afrocentric schools and universities. We need to develop our own banks and credit union. We need to develop our own African spiritual centers, our own African governance systems, our own African manufacturing factories, our own African-centered social platforms, our own communal farms, our own stock exchanges, our own African-centered investment platforms, our own Black manhood academies, our own Black womanhood academies, our own community development corporations, our own Black consumer movements, our own African investment funds, our own Afrocentric leadership, our own African social theory. Only then we will be on the path to the African sovereignty. Because a nation without wealth is a nation without self-respect. A nation without wealth is a nation without self-respect. Our survival cannot be dependent on our enemies. That is madness. Our education and socialization cannot be dependent on our enemies. That is madness. The failure of Black parents to leave wealth legacy for their children it is treason, and therefore it is a betrayal. We must stand in the shoulders of our ancestors. We must buy black from production to retail. Racism is a wealth and power-based competitive relationship between blacks and non-blacks. The sole purpose of racism is to support and ensure that the white minority and its ethnic subgroups continue to dominate and use blacks as a means to produce wealth and power. A people are empowered or disempowered by the guiding ideologies of the leaders to whom they pledge allegiance. We cannot have Marxist, Leninist, capitalist leadership. We must have leaders that are governed and are loyal to the philosophy and ideology of Afrocentricity. Nguzo Saba, Letsema, Ewepili, Nomo, and Maat. We need black warriorship that will be trained to defend the African sovereignty and its interest. A white assimilated leadership is detrimental to the future development in the political, economical, educational, cultural dimensions of the black cause. We need black nationalists because black nationalism recognizes that the power of African people is to achieve liberation and self-determination and lies within their grasp. African liberation and self-determination will not and cannot be willed or given to African people by non-African people. They must be won. They must be won through a self-sustained exercise of power generated by Africans themselves. They must be won through a self-sustained exercise of power generated by Africans themselves. Therefore, any party, any black party that wants to succeed, it must adopt the following. It must have an Afrocentric ideological and philosophical position. It must have an Afrocentric leadership. It must have an Afrocentric membership. It must have an Afrocentric Black Power Pan-Africanist master plan and blueprint. It must have an African-centered consciousness. It must work with a notion of a nation within a nation mindset, with an economy. Otherwise, it will remain a black skin white project. The actual empowerment of Black people cannot occur as long as the two main ingredients necessary for the power definition and organizations are missing or are underdeveloped, which are the set of goals and a coordinated system of Afrocentric organizations. Only then we'll be able to say we are in the path. We are in the path of Abibi Faodie. Only then we'll say we are on the path to Abibi Faodie, which is the total liberation of Africa. These are not my words, but are the words of the African ancestors. We have heard the African truth. Now is upon us. It's upon you. Asante Sana. Ang Oja Senep. Ang Oja Sedep. Ang Oja Sedep. Dua. 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 Shem Hotep. Shem Hotep. Shem Hotep.